Today on Rethink Real Estate, we have Tanya Bugbee. Now, Tanya, first and foremost, the disclaimer is that Tanya had to take care of her daughter's dog, and we didn't want to reschedule, so you might hear a bit of dog in the background barking, but it led into a good analogy that we used later on. Tanya is a real estate coach. She's been a top performer in a couple of different states, and she actually coaches about 33 realtors at the moment. Some other industries that she does a little bit of coaching in as well. But funny, she's in the transition of actually selling her property in Oceanside and moving to Central Oregon, very familiar with Central Oregon with our Harcourts network, with our number one office being up there. Shout out to the Garner Group crew. But the interesting part about this is that in the nature of coaching in real estate, obviously she's doing it independently at the moment, but she used to be with Brian Buffini. We speak about the training side of real estate, and we talk about those bigger organizations. We talk about the current issues within the real estate space, the current marketplace. It's a pretty wide-ranging conversation. We talk about some of the mental karate that real estate people do in the midst of all of it and the common things that she sees. Again, really nice conversation with Tanya. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Tanya, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Thank you, Ben. I'm really excited to be here today.
So I'm going to make sure that I call you Tanya throughout the episode rather than Tanya. That's the Aussie way that I say it, but that's just, hey, it is what it is.
Okay. I'll answer.
So I want to dive straight in. And first of all, I want to talk about this because this is going to be relevant to when we're recording, is that you just mentioned to me that you're selling your house. You're from San Diego. You're in Oceanside. Mm-hmm. How is doing that as a real estate coach?
Well, first of all, I'm a seller, and being a real estate coach, the first thing is I wanted to be a really good seller. So I did a pre-home inspection, did the pre-termite, I've done all the repairs. It's like, I have to give my realtor, because I'm not personally selling it, a really good experience.
Right.
Because I hear all the horror stories. Like, I am not going to be a horror story. And then going through home inspections and negotiations, and open houses, I can really tell the difference between a professional realtor and somebody who does this for a hobby. And it's huge. And I can spot them a mile. I can spot it, right? So that's different too. And I appreciate how hard the professional realtor works.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's funny when you understand the transaction of real estate, then you, being a seller yourself, you very much understand why a realtor, I don't believe, will ever be able to be replaced. Don't get me wrong, on a commercial perspective where it's just numbers and it just either makes sense or it doesn't. I really do believe that the commercial real estate agent will be replaced eventually. However, as far as the dealing in emotion, there is no algorithm that I think will ever get the emotion right. And there's no algorithm that I believe, because I believe, and again, this is my own belief in real estate, is that I believe we manage greed. And I know that that's not the greatest catchphrase in the world, but I haven't ever met somebody that isn't fearful of leaving money on the table. And at the end of the day, that becomes, a little bit about greed in many different cases. And it's just something that basically emphasizes every time I do it, that I believe the realtor is always going to be relevant within that emotional moment.
Right. And that realtor needs to understand that, right? Not every realtor understands that. And you're also like, this house has been my baby for many, many years, and I've detached. It's no longer my baby. I'm pretty much, I've staged it, took down all the personal stuff. Not everybody understands that. And a professional realtor is going to understand, for the seller, how difficult that could be and manage those emotions. I'm really good at managing my emotions. It's not like my realtors had to hold my hand through this. I just want her to have an experience where she walks away and said she was the best seller I've ever had.
Yep, absolutely.
It doesn't make it easy though.
Yeah. Well, diving into it, let's talk about your coaching career. And at the end of the day, you are a coaching consultant in the real estate industry. Do you do any other industries, or real estate's your primary one?
Real estate is my primary one, and I have what I affectionately and extremely affectionately call my others. Right. So I coach a very successful roofing company. He's one of my biggest success stories in doubling his business. I coach a landscaper, a financial planner, and I coach executives. I've got 4 executives that I coach right now for Walt Disney Company. Okay. I do executive coaching as well. However, I'm currently coaching 33 real estate professionals, lenders, brokers. They are my primary coaching focus.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, that gives us a little bit of insight because, I always ask this of coaches is that what gives you the right to coach people within the real estate industry?
Okay. I probably have three answers to that. Number one, my background. I was a top producing real estate agent in Florida. Then I have an ex. I'm single. And when I was married, my ex was a corporate trainer and we moved a lot. So I've been licensed in Florida, California twice because I let it go the first time, and then Houston. My longest stint in business was when I was in Houston and I was top producing agent for Better Homes and Gardens Gary Green. There was over 70 agents and I was number 2. Never hit it to number 1. I'm extremely competitive. I tried. And then so then that's the first part is my background. And I've also owned businesses. I've owned I ran a flight school. I learned how to fly. I was a pilot and taught pilots and future pilots. And I ran a flight school in Maine, and I've owned a restaurant. So I've owned other businesses, not just a real estate business in my past. And then I worked for Buffini and Company. And I'm sure almost everybody knows who Buffini and Company is, right? So I was a coach. I was one of the top 10 coaches for Brian for 7 years. And I'm also certified. So I have 2 coaching certifications that took me years to obtain and a lot of work and money. And so I'm CPCC and PCC certified as a certified coach.
Can I ask you about the training industry? Because you were part of Brian Buffini's group. There's Brian Buffini, there's Mike Ferry, there's Tom Ferry, there's, there's all these other, ones out there as well.
Mm-hmm. Ninja. Yep.
Yeah, Ninja and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think they're still relevant?
Oh, that's a loaded question. You're asking me to talk negatively about a competitor, which I try not to do. Do I think they're relevant? Yes. It's not a strong yes.
That's good. There's an essence of yes. There's an essence of yes. I like it.
Yes, because they do help people. I know they help people. And so I'm going to plug myself for a minute. Where I find my superpower lies is that I'm really good at customizing the plan from the individual person that I coach. Yeah. So if all you're going to do is quote calls, notes, Popeyes, and that's all you're focusing on, that might not work for somebody. It might work for some people. Yes, it has, and it does. However, there's a huge group of people where that's not where they're either their life or their personality. It doesn't work. And so then I come in and say, okay, let's figure out what's going to work and let's create a roadmap and follow that and stop feeling guilty that you're not doing that or the other program. Let's design. And so sometimes it's just pulling in a little bit of all different programs.
Yeah.
Regardless, if somebody really wants to farm, I'm going to give them a great tactic and lots of tactics for farming. And so yes, it's relevant for some. How's that?
Yeah. Well, that's good because, at the end of the day, there's definitely some people that I mentioned in that talking that I think that ultimately they need to move on because they haven't sat in a living room for a very, 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 very long time.
Right.
And, there is an element of being relevant to the actual market conditions that are ultimately there. But the thing that I really struggle with sometimes with training organizations is that one, it's the same message over and over again, or it's so much of a different message that agents always and they fear and they prey on the agents from being in that FOMO perspective of always fear of missing out. And they're constantly changing things and they're constantly coming up. I often find with some of the people, they are creating so much different stuff to stay relevant, they become irrelevant. If that makes sense.
Yes, and if my client or any realtor or business owner is authentically, sincerely talking to the homeowner, the buyer, the seller, and really listening to what their fears and concerns are, and knowing what the market is, that's what's relevant.
Yeah.
For example, I coached a gal who's in Virginia in the DC area, and the pain point right now are all the layoffs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so if you're just listening to that company's messaging, that has nothing to do with the relevant information and the immediate pain point for all those government employees that have been laid off.
Let's talk about market at the moment because we're filming this at the end of March and our business does real estate in 30 different states in the US at the moment. And the funny thing, it's so different everywhere. And I've said this a few times, so people are probably sick of me saying this, is that Florida, you might as well have your home fall over than try and sell it at the moment. Tennessee's bad. Colorado's awful. Texas is horrendous as well. Is that There's other areas that are definitely slower. There's no question about it. You mentioned Oceanside yourself is a little slower than ultimately what you would have liked.
Yeah.
But but then you go to the Pacific Northwest. You're moving up into Bend, Oregon. Big shout out to our Bend team.
Yes.
Is that the Pacific Northwest is fine. It's
Yes.
great, if anything. So there's so much change and there's so much noise and there's so much stuff going on with government. There's so much stuff going on in the market. There's so much stuff going on in the political scene external to the government, but in the real estate political scene, whether it's the clear cooperation, whether it's buyer side commissions, whether it's just general noise of companies acquiring other companies. And I guess that I know that there's an element of people that we always say that they need to just focus on what they can control, but 90% of realtors are addicted to drama. So where are you seeing people from just the general consensus, the 33 agents that you're coaching at the moment? What are you seeing from a headspace perspective?
It is quieting the noise because yes, we watch the news and we see it on the internet. And I have clients in the real estate realm and even outside the real estate realm who's really upside down, sideways over, a lot of the rules and regulations and things that are happening in the government or local things. In California, insurance companies are leaving.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of realtors are worried about how people are going to get insurance for homes in California. This is going to sound a little, I don't know, simplistic. We are always going to need to buy and sell homes. People are going to die. Babies are going to be born. People are going to get married. We're going to figure it out. Yep. Same thing with the NAR ruling that came out. I'm thinking it's almost been a year, almost. We figured it out. It was something that a lot of people freaked out about. But once we quieted the noise and just practiced our new scripts or whatever we needed to do, new presentations, things are moving along. Yep. So quieting some of that noise is important. I know we're addicted to the noise and we want to watch the noise. The more we can quiet it and focus on our business models, our business plans, our families. I can't believe I'm saying this word, but I'm a grandmother now. I don't know when that happened. I know how it happened. I can't believe it happened.
There you go. Yeah.
And there's things to focus on that might be a little bit more important right now. Because we're always going to have crazy. We've had crazy when COVID started and we figured it out. We're going to figure it out.
You're a coach. You're, as what I see as I don't know, there's a couple of different terminologies, whether it's a therapist to the realtors, whether it's a doctor to the realtors, whether it's, I don't know, there's a couple of different analogies that you could use in your role. Okay.
Sometimes I have a whip.
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Is that, I guess that when somebody comes to you for the first time, how do you diagnose where they are at? Like how do you poke in the positions to find out what hurts?
Lots of really good open-ended questions. What's hurting? What are you, when you wake up at 4 a.m, what is it that you're worried about or thinking about? And it's hardcore listening to where they're at. If it's an agent that has the mindset that I'm brand new, who's going to use me?
Yeah.
Right. I have to know where they're at and I meet them where they're at and then we take the steps to move forward. So it really is listening and finding out what is it that's going on up here in your head that's keeping you living small. And let's start there because that's the foundation. We could talk about database and spheres and all that being foundation, and that's true. But really, truly, it first starts up here in your mind. And what are you saying to yourself? And, if you're going to walk into a listing presentation thinking they're never going to pick me, this is my first one.
Yep.
I'm not going to swear, but that's BS. They will pick you.
Can I ask though, like I often find, and again, tell me if I'm wrong here, because at the end of the day, I'd love to hear your opinion, and it's good to have some disagreement in this. Is that I find, obviously, I can hear your dog barking in the background, which is great. That's fine. We love dogs, but no, it's okay. It's fine. Is that it shows people that it's raw. But the thing, like, let's use a dog as an analogy here, and I'm not comparing real estate agents to dogs. So for people in the comment section, please don't. Is that with a vet, I've always been fascinated with a vet. They've got to find out where the problem is based on, going in, and because that animal can't really talk to them. They can obviously show signs of different things and they can have an intrinsic understanding of what might be wrong, but they need to do a whole bunch of work in order to figure out, hey, is the animal healthy or is it not healthy? And if it is not healthy, where is the problem being caused? I often find that a realtor is kind of in that sense not going to communicate with a perfect stranger about what their depths of their problems are. in whether it be the first session, second, third, fourth, 10th, whatever it is, from their ability to open up. When do you usually see them open up? Like some of them would come in hot, ready to go, ready to lay it all out on the table, but others, they probably know they need help and they need to obviously just, cultural, they just need to curate. You need to curate some, I don't know, warmth with them. I don't know how it works, but how do you go through that process with them?
Well, first of all, I apologize about Malibu.
Okay.
I'm actually dog sitting for my daughter, so I forgot that she was here.
Okay.
So yes, it's just like in the real estate business, we have to establish trust. And how quickly is it that I'm going to establish trust, that I'm good at what I do, and I really care about my client, right? Same thing for realtors and their clients. You're good at what you do and you sincerely care. So once my client realizes that, they open up. And then again, some open up right away, and other ones take a couple coach calls. I also can, when I ask, what are you doing? What are your activities for the last week? And they tell me, and I figure out they worked maybe 2 hours, right? I can pretty much understand pretty quickly that it's lack of activity. Yep. Some of it's just being good at what you do, right? And if someone says, I've spent, I'm asking specifically, what did you do? And they'll tell me specifically what they did. And I'm thinking, gosh, that probably took an hour and a half. Right. And so, if you're in the corporate world, you work a 40-hour week. As a business owner, if all we're doing is lead generating or building relationships, networking, whatever the plan is for an hour and a half a week, we're not really working. That's a hobby.
Yep.
And I can figure that out pretty quickly. And I'm not going to say it quite that abruptly to a client. However, I got to hold the mirror up in front of their face at some point.
Yeah.
And that's what they're asking for when they get into coaching, right? I know sometimes be careful what you ask for. Yeah, but I'm kind. I'm very direct. I am not that cheerleader, marshmallowy coach. Very direct.
Well, I think that the direct nature of things is, I've got to be honest, is that if somebody's worried, again, I don't, in your position, if you're worried about offending somebody, you're never going to give them the proper truth. Now, don't get me wrong. You can be politely firm. There's no doubt. Right. You don't have to, but I've even seen that is that trying to put a positive spin on it just for the sake of it is not good, because the coaching element of this is that I honestly believe that an agent will not give you all of the truth in the beginning and won't own what they really need to until you actually point it out to them. And then at the time that they then you point it out to them, the defects in that situation, it can become definitely an awkward moment. But at that point, I think you've done more good than you've done bad.
Absolutely. And I do agree. I'm not going to push back on, sometimes it takes a while for a client really to open up, but the sooner they open up. So if you're thinking about coaching, the sooner you get real with your coach, because we don't have, as much as we want a magic wand in that magic mirror, we don't have it. I can only work with what you tell me. I mean, I'm really good at asking good questions, and I'm good at kind of like I said, like, tell me what your week looked like. And I'm adding up how many hours it worked. If somebody worked a 2-hour week, we're not working. And if you were in the corporate world, you'd be fired. Yeah. One of my favorite questions with my clients is, if you look back at your week or look back at your quarter, would you hire yourself or fire yourself?
I'm really resonating with you here, because I'm in a situation at the moment with somebody where, excuse my language, because my language is a little bit more colorful than you, is that I just had a conversation with an agent previously within our company where I literally said to him, just put the fucking deal together. Yep. You have been dancing around this thing for 2 days because you're worried that you're not going to have anything to do after the deal's done. Mm-hmm. You've got to go back and prospect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, that's like I said, would you hire yourself or fire yourself? And humans are really many, and I'm not going to say all, but we all have voices. We all have ways and voices to self-sabotage ourselves. And so once we get past fear of failure, fear of success, imposter syndrome, whatever is going up here, once we can talk about it and start working through that and finding a different radio station in our head, people soar. They do. And I love watching it. I've got so many clients now netting over 400,000 in their real estate careers. Took them a while, but I've got one of the things I'm proudest of is how, I'm not saying how long I've coached people. I've got people I've coached 7 years, 6 years right now. It's not because it's taken that long to be successful. It's because every year we do what's next.
Yeah.
Right now, this afternoon, I'm doing 2 interviews for one of my clients. I'm helping her. We're doing it together. 2 interviews for her first assistant. So I do the interviews with my clients. So they're growing. It's awesome.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second, because I've never, and please don't take this the wrong way, I've never appreciated coaching because I'm never somebody that has ever had a coach. I'm always a very good self-starter. I'm very accountable to myself and so on and so forth. And there's no doubt that I probably could do far better if I did go down that path. But I've never really appreciated it as much, and I've never really understand the relationship with a coach and an agent, because I know myself as the owner of the company is that agents hate being held accountable. And the thing with a coach is maybe there's a level of anonymity that it's a far enough removed source away from their brokerage or something along those lines. How does somebody know if they're sitting on the other end of this podcast, they're listening? Tanya, how do they know that there might be time for them to get a coach? How do you help them through the struggle of that decision?
If they're stuck, like I'm selling 20 homes a year and for the last 3 years, and I'm just not getting to that next level, you're ready for a coach or a mentor. I'm not saying it has to be a coach. Budgeting. I've got clients, and again, sometimes it takes them a year to admit they didn't put any money away for taxes, even though that's something we, like how are you set up money wise, credit cards, savings accounts, business, checking? Are you putting away for taxes? And then a year later, I find out no, right? Because again, I can't see. So if there's things you're hiding, don't be ashamed. And again, you might not want to admit that to another realtor or to your broker. I don't judge. I've been in those shoes. I couldn't buy a loaf of bread on credit when I was 30. I've been there. I don't judge.
And they need a safe environment in order
They
to
need
make
a safe
sure.
environment. Yep. That I'm like, okay, I'm not judging this. Let's get out of this hole together.
The part of this also that I'm interested to hear your opinion, having an understanding of the real estate world, is I've been asking more of the guests on the podcast to give me an understanding of where you think the real estate industry is going as a whole, because there's so many different models to real estate now. There's the EXPs and the Reals of the world that are the virtual brokerages. There's still your traditional brokerages that are out there, and a lot of people are saying that traditional brokerage doesn't work anymore because of the fee split and whatever. Compass is a clear example of it. I know that it's not working from a financial perspective, but they are still the largest brokerage in the US now.
Yep.
Okay, and they have the largest amount of market share. Yes, they bought their way there, but hey, so what? Is that then you've got a great deal of independence. You've got so many different things that are there in the industry, and so many different noises around what people want. Where do you think this industry is going from a model perspective?
Gosh, I wish I could give you a definite answer on that. I coach brokerages. I currently have two brokers that I coach and coach their brokerage. One is an online brokerage, so there's no brick and mortar building, and she's extremely successful. I am the in-house coach. And then I coach another brokerage in Dallas who has a brick and mortar building, and her agents come in and then they Zoom me in for their meetings, and she's thriving. However, they're both boutique brokerages. They're really good with having, 12, 15 agents, very relational, and they're both in the green, not in the red, like maybe an EXP or a Compass.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think that's, the individual brokerage, if run as an individual brokerage, I think you can have something that's profitable. But then on the larger scale of things, I think you're too susceptible to different changing winds. But again, there's so many different ways you can do it. It's not funny. I don't see there being any major change apart from the fact that I do believe that the virtual side of things is definitely eroding away at the nature of what commission structures are, which eventually people will say that the traditional brokerage will go away. That being said, however, is that if it does go away, 99% of the real estate community is not equipped to doing this on their own in a virtual world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm going to plug coaching in it. And I'm not saying it has to be me. Both those brokerages that are thriving have an in-house coach and a trained coach. I mean, mentoring is good. It's different though. The difference between coaching and mentoring is mentors can help you. I mean, I don't help my clients with writing a contract. There's no way I coach clients in 30 different states, right? I'm not going to learn all their contracts. That's what their broker is for or their mentor is for. So I am a high five on mentoring. Coaching is more of what's getting in the way, and then designing a plan that's going to work for them.
Do you know what's interesting? I'm doing a little bit of work with some people in Australia at the moment, just based on where I come from, and they have asked me to speak to their team And again, I don't really have the time to do it. I'm doing it as a favor to a friend. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. I'm not going to coach them. I'm just going to tell them what they're not doing. And
Right.
he's like,
I'll
yes,
come with you. I'll coach you.
yeah,
I'll come to do
yeah,
it
no,
with you.
but the thing is that it's amazing is that he says, no, that's what I need you to do. I'm like, well, I'm happy to do that because as long as I don't have to prep for it, as long as there's a nature of that, I go in there and people tell me what they're doing and then I'll tell them what they're not doing and why they're avoiding it, just so that I can respond that way. He's like, yeah, I need you to do that. I'm like, why are you not doing it? He's like, because I can't. He's like, I can't. They don't want to hear from the business owner, right, of the owner of that brokerage that you're doing a shit job. They do not want to hear that from me because it erodes away my relationship with them and whatever it is, but they need to hear it from somebody. And
it's just like parents can't tell kids what to do sometimes, or they do, but then they go hear it from a teacher. Like my daughter, who was a swimmer, I remember giving her advice on something and she wasn't listening. And then I picked her up from swim practice. She got in the car and says, Mom, guess what? I need to do this. And I've been saying this for months, right? And it's like, but the swim coach had to tell her. It was something about eating. So
here's the difference, though. Here's the difference in a great business owner versus somebody that isn't. Is that, let's say that I got you to speak to a brokerage, right? And I'm the owner of that brokerage. And then the agent comes to me and says, hey, Tanya said this is what I need to be doing. And I've been telling them that forever. This is the difference. Me as the business owner can't say, yeah, but I've been telling you that.
No,
Don't try and take any, like they try to protect their ego in that situation, be like, oh, I told you that. It's like, who gives a shit, just as long as they get it.
Exactly. And hence I was not Mother of the Year award for me. And yes, exactly. And telling them what to do is great. And I'm sure 50% of the people are going to love it and go off and do it. The 50% that aren't, is there's something stopping them.
Yeah.
Right. That sounds salesy, or I don't have time, or whatever that the question response is, that isn't going to help them move forward. And they're the ones that need it. When you say, how do you know you need a coach? If you got those voices, I can't, I won't, it's that, then, because I will help you unsalesy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that I don't mind, because I go through this with myself all the time, the other response that I don't really mind is not that, it's not that like, oh no, but the market's this and it doesn't work here, or I hate those excuses. It's okay if someone says, yeah, but I don't want to do that. Great. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
Like I often say to myself, do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do it. So don't do it. You know, like it's forcing yourself to do things for the sake of it. It's funny how I start off a business plan with people very often where I say to them, do you want to do more than you did last year? Oh, of course I do. Are you saying that because you think you need to say that, or are you saying that for legitimate reasons of why?
Right. Oh, of course. I'll have clients, I'll say for the next year, what do you want to do this year? And they'll say, double it. And I'm like, is that what you want? And like, well, that's what you want. Like, it's not about me, right? What do you want? I've had clients say, I want to do less and have more time to vacation. Awesome. Right. So it's not the should, it's what do you want?
Exactly right.
Yeah,
well, I can't think of any better place to stop, Tanya. I thank you jumping on. I'll make sure that all of your link to your website and everything along those lines. By the way, love your website. I think it's pretty comprehensive to sort of go through and understand exactly, how you sort of operate and how you work. So I really would suggest that if anybody's looking for a coach at the moment, to jump on and at least have a conversation. And just run through, because it's really, yes, there's some really good coaches out there with what they can give from a practicality standpoint, but they need to get along with you first and foremost.
Of course. And I'm all okay with clients saying, well, let me talk to some of your clients, because they're the ones that are going to, talk to a client. Exactly. I'm good with that. Not afraid of that. And thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, good luck with the sale of the property and good luck with the transition up to Central Oregon. I spend a lot of time in Central Oregon. I love Central Oregon. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to live. So either way, I hope you enjoy the transition, and thank you for being on Rethink Real Estate.
And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.